Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
All right, welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast, number 91. This episode, we're going to call it our favorite debut albums by our choice. It'll be our opinion, so they're always right because they're our opinions. You will notice that we have an extra person here today, and we met this gentleman at the Rockin' Pod Expo in Nashville, and his name is Ken Mills. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself there, Ken, for our listeners who don't know who you are.
Well, before you start, Ken, I apologize because Dennis did not call you the Podfather.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, excuse me. Now, am I going to end up with a horse head on my bed now?
No, it's not like that.
I'll write that down, and I forgot.
Well, right. My name is Ken Mills, and I'm guilty of being a podcaster. If nothing else, I'm a podcaster. And I've been doing the PodKISSt for over 10 years, and we've been doing a show on Cheap Trick called Cheap Talk. We also do a show about the Monkees, and it is called Zilch, a podcast full of monkeys. And we also have a new show called Pop, which is basically me talking about anything I want, whether it be TV shows, whether it be good TV shows, bad TV shows, good movies, bad movies, comic books, anything at all. A lot of music. We talk a lot of music on that show. So
cool.
So that's kind of who I am as a podcaster. So.
Gotcha.
So you ever have any time where you just don't do anything?
No. When you have 4 podcasts that you have to provide either monthly or weekly stuff for all the time, and it's constantly busy. Plus, I'm always doing other shows like this one. So,
awesome. Welcome aboard, man.
Yeah, we're glad
to have you.
It was really nice to meet you folks at the Rockin' Pod Expo in Nashville this last month. It was very cool. I didn't quite know what to make of you because you guys were all color coordinated. For people that don't know, these guys showed up.
Podcast.
These guys showed up looking like the Best Buy Geek Squad, and I'm not making fun of you. But
that's the new one.
Yeah, we heard Smurfs, and then we heard.
No, you guys had the blue, shirts on. They were all monogrammed and everything, and you had this huge high-def monitor at your table and all this gear. And I just know that if anybody said, hey, does anybody have an extra extension cord? And I'm like, those guys have to have one. So
that's awesome.
And what's sad about that, Ken, is we were the ones that were unrepaired. We had to go twice to the store to pick up some cords. So we were very...
Well, you were picking them up for everyone else, so there you go.
We forgot a bunch ourselves. So,
but you guys were very professional, and please don't take the Best Buy Geek Squad thing as a bad.
We got referred to as Smurfs. We got referred to as the Blockbuster guys, the Best Buy Geek Squad.
Corporate podcasters.
Corporate podcasters. Yeah, I don't care. The fact that we got talked about and people recognized us, mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And you, sir, are one hell of a bass player, Alan.
Oh, I was going to ask you, how did you like wearing my necklace bass?
That was very weird. I've always been from the school of James Hetfield as far as straps, right? And I get your bass and I'm like this. So it was very weird.
So for anybody, nobody really knows because I never talk about it, but the strap on my bass, I basically got it where I wanted it, and then my mother-in-law has an embroidery machine, and I had her run the strap through the embroidery machine so that the strap wouldn't slide back and forth because I'd always had trouble with my straps not staying where I wanted them.
I understand.
And
there's these things called nuts, and that you can lock them right in place.
Well, it's got the strap locks on it.
Yeah, I know, but you went the extra mile. So
no, the strap that I got works perfect for me.
Oh, for you,
well,
yeah.
It worked for all of you guys because everybody did a damn good job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed playing that bass, though. What kind of bass was it?
It is a PV Millennium BXP.
That explains it. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And Ken, you're a hell of a bass player yourself, so don't. I mean,
thank you.
Don't forget about his singing, Parasite
exactly.
and Surrender.
Hell yeah,
he did a great job, man. It
was a good time.
All those people that left early missed it.
Exactly.
Well, we kind of like, for people who don't understand, we kind of like tore down, and the public kind of went away, and it was just us. Right. The different, like, 25 podcasts or so, just hanging out. And Lee McCormick had made up this idea of us all jamming, and we all would sign up and play different songs and stuff like that. And it was done really well in a way I've never seen done before. We were on and off that stage, you know what I'm saying? If you like, for example, you'd say, okay, we're doing Circle Sky by the Monkees, and those 4 people got up, and then they got off, and then the next batch came on. And it was just like bang, bang, bang. If only the government and the DMV or even me worked that well, it would be great. But
I will say that Lee, number one, was a killer stage manager because he did not mess around. It's like, okay, this song, you guys get up here. And number two, he jumped on the drums for Parasite. I was supposed to play drums on Parasite, but when I finally sat down on these things a couple of days beforehand, I realized I haven't played drums in like 4 years. I am not ready for this. So when he says, he's like, I'm going to get on the drums, I'm like, yay! And then I wasn't prepared to play Parasite on bass either. So that
we want to give his show a shout out. Tramps Like Us, a Bruce Springsteen podcast. Excellent show. If you're into the boss, you need to check it out. Tramps Like Us.
For sure.
And the amazing thing is, and I play in a band, and we practice songs on our own, and we go to practice, and it takes 10 times through to get them down pat. And I tell you what, for a bunch of people who never met each other, come in and play, what was it, 8, 9 songs we did total?
Something like that.
Different. Dude, they all sounded damn good. I mean, for no rehearsals, no nothing coming in. Hey, how you doing?
No sound check.
And no sound check, and boom, just, okay, the amp sounds fine. I would have liked to have done some adjusting and stuff. Oh my God, but you know what? Let's just do this. And it was so much fun. And it sounded great.
When was the last time you were in a band with like 30 people?
Oh,
it was great. You know what I mean?
It was.
Bang.
Marching band was in 1987, 88.
All right, but yeah, it was a great time, and like I said, it was nice meeting you, and plus all the other people. It was just a great trip, and we've talked about it, and I've listened to a lot of the other podcasts about their take on it, and it was just a great weekend. We had a great time, and looking forward to the next one. I hope it happens.
Same here.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so real quick, too, before we get into our episode, just some quick news. I don't know if anybody's seen that, the new Queen movie that they've been talking about forever. Sacha Cohen was at one time going to play Freddie. Well, now they've got a guy named Rami Malek, who they just released some pictures this week, some publicity pictures of him dressed up as Freddie, and the dude looks unbelievably like Freddie Mercury. He was actually in the movie, or he's in I think it's a TV series or a cable series called Me Robot or Robot I, or I can't think of the name. But he was also in the Night of the Museum. He played the young prince, like the Tutankhamun, when it came alive.
Yeah.
But he is a U of E grad. He went to
That's cool.
And that's why Tim Carter put that on there this week and said he was a U of E grad. I'm like, really? And because he was he went to Notre Dame school in California, high school, and then I guess went to Evansville school, and now he's going to be Freddie Mercury in this new movie. I think they're talking about December of 2018 when they're finally going to release this thing. But it may fall through again. Who knows?
Yeah. He's from the show Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. Thank you. I knew it was Robot something. But yeah, that, and the other thing I had today was it 40? Let me get this right. 42 or 43 years alive?
42
alive today. And it sucks so bad because, remember I talked about that last week that I almost was going to buy that record, and I talked myself out of it at the store the other day. I come home and Amazon got it for $30, tax included, and it's going to be here tomorrow. It's like, damn it, I wish it would have came today, because I was going to like do a whole presentation of opening it up. So I may not open it up and wait till our next show when we record, and I'm going to do a little time machine, if you will. So
that album seriously changed my life.
Oh, probably everybody on this screen right now did something to them, you know.
That was the time that I found my Beatles. Even though the Beatles are my Beatles,
right?
They were from my mom and my uncles and my aunt's generation,
right?
And I was looking for something because Alice Cooper had retired. Well, I can do a whole show on that some other time. But when I heard Parasite off of Alive, my buddy and I were driving around, and he's like, Mills, you got to check this out, right? And he had this really kick-ass Camaro in the feathered hair, and he looked great. I was like a chubby fat kid, and he looked fantastic. He was like Keith Partridge. I was not. I was Danny Bonnie Tucci.
Danny Bonnie Tucci.
Yeah.
So do you strum a bass as well?
Yeah, I do. So he had it on 8-track.
Right.
And I had seen KISS a little bit like in Cream magazine and stuff like that, but I didn't understand what was going on. And I remember looking at that 8-track and seeing like the little tiny postage stamp picture that was on it comparatively to the album, you know, and trying to figure out, well, which one sings? And I figured it was Gene Simmons, who I didn't even know his name at the time, but I figured that's the guy that's got to be singing everything, right?
Right.
And I didn't know who was what and what was who. And my buddy played Parasite for me, and it was on 8-track. Now, keep in mind, I wanted to hear it again immediately. So that meant
good luck with that.
I had to drive around
you did.
until it came back, click, and came back around.
Yeah.
So we were like 25 minutes late for school that day, and it was so totally
perfect.
No,
So what year was that?
what was it? 76?
Alive came out in 75.
75.
Yeah, Alive came out in 75.
Yeah,
is that when,
75.
Is that when you heard it first, or did you hear it a couple of years later? Okay.
No, it was back to school sometime around whenever it came out. And I remember he had Dressed to Kill, the 8-track.
Right.
And I borrowed that all the time, but it didn't catch fire like Alive did.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It was the mix.
You are how old are you anyway? You're what?
I'm 54.
So see, we're 52. That's why I'm trying to. We're all about the same, except for Alan. He's the baby of the group. But Bill and I are both 50. I'm 52. You're 51.
Yeah.
And but see, that was what was weird with me is I was at a friend's house, a guy that I rode dirt bikes and stuff with as a kid, and I went in the kitchen there at his house, and he's listening to this. It was an 8-track, and I'm like, what is this song? And it was Hotter Than Hell, and I'm like, what? And it was loud, all this crowd sound. I'm like, what is this? I mean, it was like the craziest shit ever. And he's like, man, it's this band KISS. Look what they look like. And I'm like, holy shit. So I remember going home that day, and it was like a day later, and my mom took me to this little department store up in Tell City where we lived, and I bought Destroyer. They didn't have Alive at the time. They had Destroyer. So this would have been the summer of 76, because it was probably the summer of 76. So I bought Destroyer and came home, and I remember listening to it, and it wasn't about a week later then I went and got Alive,
Yeah.
and found it and bought it. But yeah, I was just like, okay, I want everything.
Hook, line, and sinker. And you mentioned the sound of that album. Like, for example, one of the great things was it sounded huge. That crowd sounded like they were playing Wembley Stadium.
Right.
And the thing about KISS, the thing about KISS was not so much the reality of what you saw, but what you created right here.
Right.
Seriously. Because no matter what they were able to do, you wrote the other part of the story. Are you aware of that? I mean, people don't think about that. And there's that one picture. I don't know if you can put a picture up on the screen, but while we're talking about this, there's one picture in Alive where Gene is leaning over Ace, and something's coming off his tongue, and it just looks like it's a spiral.
Right.
Are you aware of this photo?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it's just absolutely amazing. As you're looking at that, going, are these guys even human?
They're almost
but I
human.
remember, yeah, almost human. But I remember reading like Cream magazine or Circus magazine back in the day, before 16 magazine hit, because that was when they got to that level. It just everything blew up. But you almost had to like get the rock scene and these weird off-brand rock and roll magazines. You know, it was like forbidden. You know, and that was when it was really fun.
Well, you know, and I was like, you know, bought alive. I had Destroyer, bought alive. And like you said, in your head, other than photos and what I seen in magazines, I'd never seen them moving on video or moving on, you know, film. I'd never seen what they're, just from the photos you had. And then, like you said, you had to make up what's actually going on at this concert when you're listening to it. And it wasn't until the Paul Lynde special, that was the first time I saw them actually moving and doing their stuff. And I'm just like, you know.
And it's weird because we forget how revolutionary that was to us.
Oh, yeah.
But there are people who right now, like if KISS goes on Dancing with the Stars or whatever award show, whatever they do,
right,
the people are going to get online. Oh, man, I remember when KISS was dangerous. You mean like when they were on the Paul Lynde show with Witchy Poo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Florence Henderson.
You know? Yeah. That was dangerous stuff. We're all going to hell.
You know? When they were on Mike Douglas, I mean, that kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
I like cheeks and necks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but like I said, we could talk about this all night. But I did see that today. I'm like going, well, how great is that? And it's like, God damn, I wish it would have came in yesterday because I would have opened that brand new one up. It would have been great, but it'll have to wait for the next.
It won't be as good as mine though, because I have one that I got in new in 19. Well, probably.
Well, I've got mine.
It is brand 1975. Well, you don't want a new one, man. You don't need a new one.
Mine's worn the hell out.
Then it should be worn the hell out. That's why you should have it.
I wanted a new copy. I wanted a brand new, crisp copy of it. Actually, I got the one that I originally bought, and then I bought another used copy about 15, 16 years ago, and it was fairly worn when I got it, and I wore it out some more, and now I want
that's probably a good question for the web page is okay. How many copies of Alive do you have?
This will be my third. So.
1, 2, 4. 3
and then it gets even yeah, that's the other thing when you take cassettes, 8-tracks, everything, MP3s now into effect, you know, it's a whole thing. But that's definitely an album that, even though it wasn't a debut, it might as well have been for many of us. You know?
Exactly.
Truthfully, for them, it really was. I mean, that was the launching pad. The rest of it was, you know, it just, once that hit, it was over.
If Alive wouldn't have happened, it might be a whole different story.
They were on like it was on.
I'm not sure we'd be talking today.
You're correct.
No, it may not. May not.
I don't think we would.
No.
That's like somebody was complaining at the Rock and Pod. They said there's, you know, we have like what 5 dedicated KISS podcasts there, and they're like, and I'm like, well, whether you realize it or not, every podcast is a KISS show because they have influenced everything in so many ways. Just like the Beatles, almost everything we do can be traced back to all of those things somehow, some way, you know, whether it be entertainment or just in how things are presented. So everything we do is a KISS podcast. Everything we do is a Beatles podcast.
And everybody,
or Edison or whatever, you know.
Anybody that's our age or our generation was affected by them. And either way, you could have hated them or you either loved them. But you had an opinion about it. KISS was not one of those bands that you didn't know about them. You either loved them or you hated them. But you had an opinion. It was like, KISS, I don't know.
And the people that hated them made me love them even.
That's exactly
because everyone that came up, and this is the same, like I mentioned Cheap Trick, I mentioned the Monkees, the same principle applied. So people came up and said, KISS sucks, the Monkees suck, Cheap Trick sucks, whatever. It's just, I love them even more now.
Adds fuel to the fire.
You know,
all right.
It's kind of funny because the only ones that probably didn't feel that way were the guys from the Dandy Music Hour. I think that's the right title, something like that. That when we did your top 5 KISS songs, they said that was really the first time they listened to them, was prepping for that show. And those guys are on. They got to be in their 20s.
Randy Hall.
Okay, in their
Handsome Dan and Randy.
Yeah, it's got to be. They got to be in their 20s or early 30s or something. Those are young dudes it look like. So,
did you like how I snuck my top 5 in there?
The rest of us that were there that are in our late 40s and 50s had no problem with knowing who our top 5 were.
Exactly.
But it's weird because anybody that likes hard rock, like there's this battle all the time. What is heavy metal? What is not heavy metal? Right? To me, heavy metal is Alice Cooper and Led Zeppelin just as much as it is Metallica. Right. Then there are people who even say that Metallica is not metal. You know what I'm saying? To me, you get to a point where it just sounds like dogs barking in a drill press, That's all fine and good, and if that's what you dig, that's what you dig. I'm never going to cut down somebody's musical taste, except for you 3. But but seriously, that to me is where it all started. So you don't have a Skid Row if you don't have an Aerosmith and a KISS and a Ted Nugent and so on and so forth, and everybody back then. So to discount, those guys don't even realize what they missed out on.
Exactly.
So, maybe they'll find it.
Exactly.
Yeah, they will.
Segue in from that, let's talk about our favorite debut albums. Now, it doesn't have to be that it sold 1 million or 10 million or 100 million. It's just basically, what was your memorable 5 LPs that you thought were... I had a criteria for
LP. Mine, what's that?
Oh, you have one. You have one.
You bought one, and you.
Well, I'm not ready to discuss that yet because we still haven't done our Rock and Pod Expo recap.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Recap.
Yeah, we're late.
Okay,
we're
super
late on that.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do like we do. I don't know, Ken, if you're familiar. We're going to go one each. Keep going round table that way, and we'll go on there. And if there's a copy of it, or we each, doesn't matter. Say what you like about it. So we'll just go from there. So who wants to go first? Ken, you want to go first?
I'll go first.
Who wants to go first? Ken, you want to go first?
Well, he's our guest. The guest is first.
Now, when I say favorite debuts, I'm talking some of the best debuts of all time, in my opinion, and albums that pretty much were career-defining in many ways, right?
Gotcha.
The first album I'm going to go with is Cheap Trick, 1977. What a great album. It's an album with, you'd never sure which side to put on first, because one of the albums was marked A and the other side was 1. So you'd flip it over and this is side 1. Okay. This is side A, but so it was that kind of thing. Great songs that oddly enough did not make it onto their Alive album, Live at Budokan.
Right.
But such greatness, and everything that makes Cheap Trick great is found on that album. That album is subversive. That album is dangerous. That album is dark. If you've never listened to Cheap Trick 1977's debut album
today,
you are missing out. So is this one of yours?
No, actually, and it's a funny story, and I'll get to it. What do you mean, no? It's not one of mine.
It's not one of yours.
It's not one of mine.
No.
Funny story
actually,
later.
It was. Okay. Well, since we're on it real quick, because Spotify pissed me off. They have their, they always put their albums in a row. Well, they had In Color, and then they have Cheap Trick. They're both released in 77. Well, I listened to In Color, and I'm like going, well, dude, that's it right there. And I had it down, Cheap Trick In Color. Now it's scribbled out. And I'm like, so I went back to that. Problem is I had 7 albums, so I had the Cheap Trick 1. It's a great album.
Count.
But I had to cut it out because I had too many albums. But it is a good album. I just listened to it like 3 hours ago. It is a fantastic album.
I am looking at a list of 10 albums. So I'm ready to rock and roll every which way but loose here. 70s.
That's country.
So, yeah, country. But what do you guys think of Cheap Trick's debut album?
Oh,
and have you never heard it?
I have never heard it. I've never been more than a Fairweather Cheap Trick fan.
You listen to it.
But that doesn't mean I won't go listen to it, because now I will.
please do so. What about you, sir, Bill?
Well, I actually was in the same boat with Dennis. I thought the first album was in color, and so really, I mean, that's the one that I never went back to the one before that. So I'll have to do that. I have a handy dandy notebook here too. So see that Cheap Trick 1977. So I got to find. I will be downloading that. So.
And I even thought
I'm sure it's going to be great because I thought In Color was great. I mean, I like it when they play songs from that album. So.
Right.
By the way, I've already done like the Devil Horns and the I Love You. So every once in a while, I'll just be doing like weird hand gestures, like on like Paul Stanley on an album cover, just like things like that.
What the hell is that about?
Don't pay attention to me.
All right. So who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
Wait.
Oh, you go next, Alan.
Seriously, I want you guys to check this album out.
Yeah,
it's a great album.
It's got songs about suicide, murder.
Mm-hmm.
Some weird things going on at the playground. It's really excellent. Then there's something so beautiful like Mandicello's on there.
Yeah,
Mandicello is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then there's a song like He's a Whore,
right,
which is so much fun and a great song to play. It's fun to play actually, that kind of thing, and it's also fun to listen
with your necklace bass.
Yeah. But it would have to be a 12-string because of Tom Peterson.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's next?
I will go next, and as this will be no surprise to anyone, so I'll just go ahead and get it off the list. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
That's the one I told you would be everybody's, but I didn't. Anyway.
Nope.
That's not the one that I was expecting, Dennis.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But that's the one I thought was going to be, but no.
But, I mean, to me, this, like I've said before, it was an angry album. Every song on there, to me, is just knocked it out of the park. It is their career-defining album, and I think after this album, they just went downhill.
It's really their only album.
Yeah.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's their greatest hits album. It's everything.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't have that album, you don't have Guns N' Roses. I personally love the EP that they put out right around the same time. That was great.
Mm-hmm. But are you talking about Live Like a Suicide or the Lies EP?
The Lies.
Yeah. I like the live stuff on that one, and most of the acoustic stuff on side 2 I like pretty well. But I think they could have taken Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 and just made a Use Your Illusion, and then left the other songs in the demo pile.
That would have been a great box set right around now.
Right.
It would have made a stronger career for them on album. But technically, see, I have this weird love-hate thing with Guns N' Roses, right?
Everybody does.
Yeah, but I really don't like them. And that doesn't mean that I don't own that album. And Lies, that means that, like, I would get angry with them, whether it be because of Axl not showing up till 1 a.m. or whatever. But it was just like everybody. Well, here, let me just explain something. When a new movie comes out, Jurassic Park or whatever, I hear about it so much that I just turn it off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I did with Guns N' Roses. It was like there's too much hype. You know what I mean? They can't be that good. And even when I got the album, I thought this is a great album. It's too much, But it does not take away from the greatness of that album.
Yeah, no. I agree. I'm the same way. I have it's definitely a love-hate, and that's a band that I think they're, I don't know. I didn't go see them this summer when they were out. I didn't bother, or in the fall or spring or whatever. It's just wasn't a thing for me. And it was for exactly what you said, Ken. I'm not going to go spend a bunch of money and support a bunch of guys that don't respect the fans, which is what I kind of got, expected out of that. Now they didn't do that, and they probably didn't do that because the promoters are like, you pull that shit, and we're going to fine you. That's got to be in a rider or a contract or something. But it's just the whole thing to me was just yeah.
Say that again, Ken.
I said, don't you think that they've also grown up a little bit? I mean,
they have. I think
they have. It's kind of like Van Halen with the brown M&Ms, right?
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't do that today, but back in 1980, that was fun.
But there was a reason for that, and it was to get getting these people to read their writers, because if they found brown M&Ms, they destroyed a complete floor in a venue because they said that their stage has to be able to hold so many pounds and blah blah blah. They didn't. The floor got destroyed. They got sued for that. So they put that rider in the middle, and they said if they come in there and the M&Ms are fucked up, then the guy hasn't read our rider, and we need to double check this shit. So that was what that was for. It wasn't being assholes. It was basically a legal situation.
Yeah, the being assholes was just a bonus.
Yeah, and it came just naturally. So
you should keep a little thing on the screen, like for every album that we talk about. You could put like whether we get a ding 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 from each person. So like I think Guns N' Roses album all gets 4 dings from us, right? I mean, we all 4-star.
That's one of those ones that it is. It has a lot of meaning to a lot of people. So cool.
Yeah.
So at the end of that segment, we'll have to, or end of that one, we'll have to vote, and everybody put your thumbs up. That'll have to be or thumbs down. That'll have to be the ding. All right. So mine one was a debut album that it really is his debut album, but not his debut, and that is Dio's Holy Diver. Not a demo. I mean, not his first time at because he was in Rainbow and with Black Sabbath, but definitely his first on his own. And I mean, the band he had was freaking awesome. I mean, you go back and look at this: Vinny Appice and Jimmy Bain, Vivian Campbell. Yeah. I mean, good Lord. And I listened to it again today. That album, it starts with Stand Up and Shout, right? And it just doesn't stop. And even the ballad, there's a couple of ballady songs on there. It's just a great rock record. And what a way to start. And he just followed it up. That was the beginning. And I was a Dio fan from that very first record. That is one of the debut albums that made me a fan that I went, that dude that's awesome.
And that's a good one. That's one I didn't think about. So I'll give it a big thumbs up too. That should be on my list.
Would you say it's a career defining album? Like, is that his best album?
Yeah, last in line wasn't as good. I think that one was his peak.
Well, I think that I agree, Dennis, because I think Last in Line got a little more commercial.
What was the next one? What was the next one? Sacred
Heart.
Sacred. And I had it on cassette. Yeah. It was hard to follow that album up. It really was.
Yeah. I just thought it was a great album. Yeah. So and the artwork was cool as hell. Some of the best artwork of any rock album. So
it was.
Just think if Dio was alive today, he could be doing a song like "First in Line at the AARP." So
exactly. Awesome. All right. So
only driver, you've been driving an Uber and I can't see.
Somebody could make some money off that.
There you go.
His wife Wendy needs to look into this. So, all right. So my first.
Maybe she could get the hologram to sing it.
There you go.
The hologram's coming around. So you guys gonna go see the hologram?
Nope.
No way in hell. Nope.
If it was close and I would probably go just to see it. Just
if it's in a bar and it's cheap, yeah. But it won't be in a bar and it won't be cheap. So the answer's no.
Oddly enough, though, we were talking about Guns N' Roses. If they get the hologram of Axl from back in the day, will the hologram not show up till 1 a.m?
It doesn't. They're like, we can't get this son of a bitch to work, and it's like 2 hours later. Now it's working. What the hell?
Now that's some artificial intelligence.
There you go, man. Right there.
All right. So my first pick for a debut album, and I had real quick. I had the way I did this is they had to have a criteria. It had to be a great album. Excuse me, I dropped my pen. It had to be a great. Had to be a great album. Number one, it has to be basically I can listen to the whole thing without skipping one song on it, and the band had to have better albums afterwards. This is not their one shot, one wonder. So I was tight. I was hard on myself. So my first one is Boston.
This is why when we tell Dennis there are no rules, it just freaks him out. He's got to have some boundaries.
I make my own. He's
on a rail, man.
Because if not, I'd have 25 of these son of a bitches. So I had to get it down. So anyway, my first one is Boston's debut album, 1976, August 25th. That album has sold over 25 million. worldwide since it debuted. I mean, it's one of those albums I put it on first thing, More Than a Feeling comes on, and dude, it does a whole album. And it was over with. I'm like, damn, I wish there was another song. It's a great album, and there's so many memories that come back, and every song on that
and
record,
it's More Than a Feeling.
It is. It's more than a feeling. But anyway, that album's just.
When I listen to that album, I close my eyes and I drift away.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that's awesome. So anyway, that's my first pick. You can't go wrong with Boston.
Well, that's a thumbs up for me.
Me too. Absolutely.
Ching. Yeah, to me, that's one of those things that even though I tried to ignore at the time that it came out, because it was like every party you went to, I'll close my eyes. It's like, not again. Let's go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it is classic, and it is literally a greatest hits album unto itself.
It is. It is.
One thing that I will say about Tom Schultz, that dude is the king of hammer-ons and pull-offs.
Yeah.
Oh,
man,
exactly.
Just pay attention to his guitar work in any of those songs.
It's just insane, and love those guys.
It's kind of amazing too, because what was the second album?
Don't Look Back.
Almost No One Cares.
That's my point right there. That's my point. It was, like your question about Dio. That was Boston's defining moment,
right?
And the career. I mean, because after that,
they had third stage. They had more hits. Third stage was kind of they actually came back and caught another generation.
Yeah.
So they continued.
But seriously, if you could go and like Guns N' Roses, if they said we're only going to play this album, you would be completely happy.
Right.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there are fans out there who are like, man, I've got to hear Amanda.
Right.
But
God. Yeah, I could go without that.
Put your hand down, Alan.
Well, Third Stage came out when I was like a junior or senior in high school, so
But the whole point too you got to remember is that Boston really wasn't a band. It was Tom Stoltz and Brad Delp.
Ken, you missed an opportunity. You should have told me to cool my engines.
Yeah, I was going to. By the way, I used to watch Regis and Kathy Lee or Kelly or whoever's on that show this month or whatever. And I always used to be, why are they drinking so much water? And on my other podcasts that are not on video, I don't sit here and drink like an entire 2 gallons of water. But for some reason, I feel like I need that really large cup of, that they always give them on talk shows. This is a new experience, man. I'm freaking out.
Well, it's because
it's called alcohol.
It's because we partially have a game. We partially have a game on here, Ken, where when Dennis is on a ray on some kind of thing, and he says and there again, which he says 35 times an episode. We talked about having a drinking game. Every time he says we're gonna drink. So one time I texted Alan and said, hey, when he starts saying that, we're drinking. So I don't even think he ever noticed it. But if you go back and look at the episode, every time he says it, both of us started.
Not till the end, and then I caught on what you guys were doing. I'm like, you bastards.
My eldest stepson, who is a teacher and a minister, believe it or not, he does this thing where when one of the younger boys are acting particularly foolish or crazy, he'll just sit there and sip his coffee, and he has this look on his face, and Sean's doing that thing again. So, hi, Sean.
Yeah. All right. So that was mine, Boston. So, all right, Ken, you're number 2.
Another career-defining album, another iconic album cover. It does not get much better than this. And I don't, maybe some people think, well, this guy likes KISS. Maybe he's just into hard rock. No, I love every kind of music. The Cars debut album, not a bad song on it. The cover is iconic. Like the Cheap Trick album, again, another iconic image with the logo and everything. And you've got that picture of that girl, and it's framed in your mind. You know it. You can hear it. And if there was any doubt of almost every song on that album being an FM staple, Phoebe Cates getting out of the pool.
Yeah. In stereo. Moving with Phoebe Cates in stereo.
Yeah. So Seriously, I can't understand why anyone wouldn't like this album. It's so great. I grew up in the shadow of Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Okay, we were right on the border, and WMMS, the mighty buzzard, the blowtorch of the Midwest from Cleveland, Ohio, they played this album constantly. And if you made it in the art room, because the art room was the king of cool. The rest of the high school may not have known it, but we had everything from Kraftwerk to Black Sabbath to the Beatles, Alice Cooper, Pink Floyd. If you made it in this crowd, you hit it. And the Cars' first album was a hit with everybody across the board. It seems like, the nerds to the football players all were into this album.
Right. That was good.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm giving that a thumbs up.
Yeah, me too.
Good album for sure.
Awesome.
E3.
Yeah.
Ching.
All right,
Ching.
Mr. Allen, number 2 for you, bro.
Skid Row's self-titled debut album.
It's a good album.
This is another one. They knocked it out of the park with this one. It was well produced. And after that, the shit hit the fan and that band just fell apart.
Oh.
Right. It was almost a career-ruining album.
Yeah.
Well,
because had they not made that,
that is a very good assessment.
Once you break and make, where do you go from there?
Yeah, because the pressure to follow something like that up, I mean, especially back in those days when, record sales were a huge deal.
Right.
He's having a drink. He's having a drink.
It's definitely, that was the thing back in the day. You couldn't. It wasn't about whether the first album was big. It wasn't as much about the first album being big as could you follow it up with a sophomore record.
It was a sophomore record.
There were so many bands that could not do it, and they just disappeared.
Well, we need to do an episode of sophomore albums that knocked it out of the park. I have a list of those.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Write that down.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great album, and that was on my list actually at one point in time, and then I started paring stuff back.
There's just so many good ones, and I just kind of, but it wouldn't have passed my test. So anyway.
Yep. So number 2 for me is and actually this is not the album that got me hooked on the band, but it's an album that I really like, or that I ended up really liking as a debut album, and that's Motley Crue's Too Fast for Love. I thought it was just one of those albums that just hit you right in the face. I mean, that's what I wrote down. I mean, from the very beginning, it's on, and just the whole thing from beginning to end is just, I don't know, it's like a machine gun.
I like that album, and I appreciate that album, but it's not in the top list of Motley albums for me.
No, I don't know if it's in my top list of Motley albums. When I was thinking about debuts and I was thinking of albums that I really thought, if that band wouldn't have had that record at that time,
right,
I don't know that they would have been around. And I think that was it for them.
And guess what? Their sophomore album was
Speaking of bands who knock it out of the park on their sophomore album, that might end up in my list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It should.
It might. It might not.
Might not.
Right.
Well, it also
leave them wanting
has,
something.
It also has the ringtone for my wife. Looks to Kill is my wife's ringtone on my phone.
Hot.
All right. So
So what are we giving that one? Wait, are we giving?
I'll give that one a thumbs up.
Thumbs up on that one?
I won't tell you what mine is because my next one is Motley Crue's Too Fast for Love. It was one that I had. No, I had that one on there, dude.
No way.
Yeah, Motley Crue, Too Fast for Love. Yes. I mean, that's one of my favorite albums, and it was on early. It actually came off the list, and then it went back on the list after the Cheap Trip fiasco that I had. So, Motley Crue, Too Fast for Love, awesome album.
Which, by the way, you mentioned your Cheap Trick fiasco. Do you know what the actual title for In Color is?
What is it?
In Color and in Black and White. Because if you look at the front of the album cover, Robin Zander and Tom Peterson in color, looking cool, and then you flip it over and there's guys like me, Rick Nielsen, and Bunny Carlos on mopeds in a black and white shot. So it's in color and in black and white. Cool.
Because it was so funny about that, because I was looking at on Spotify and go, why in the hell would they have Cheap Trick self-titled as their second album. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And then later on, I was like, it kept bugging me. It kept bugging me, so I went to Spotify, or I went to actually Wikipedia, and I looked up their discography, and I'm like going, I bet you $1 them son of a bitches had them switched because they're both 77 and 82, and I was right. I'm like, God damn it. So that's what I had to switch them. So anyway, that's how Motley Crue got back in. So yeah, that's anyway.
Damn, man.
Sorry. All right.
What?
In number 3, dude. What you got?
Me?
Yep.
You're Ken.
Oh, wow. I'm going to go with the mighty Van Halen.
Yeah, that was another one I wanted to do, but just I had others I wanted to do first. So
how can you not love that album? I mean, everything about it. I mean, it basically birthed an entire new way of playing the guitar. Whether anybody else was doing it before or not, it doesn't matter. It was kids all across the world saying, I want to learn how to do, so that's it. Now, here's a true story. I hated Van Halen when they came out. Do you know why?
No.
Because Dave's a dick?
No. Dave is my spirit animal. So let's.
I don't know. Let me think. I don't know.
Because KISS was the largest band in the world for just a period there. And then a band called AC/DC came in, and I remember a guy by the name of Ted Miller that I went to high school with. Hi, Ted. He said, hey, Mills, man, I know you really dig a lot of cool rock and roll, and you like to find the rock and roll first. Check out this album. It's called AC/DC. It's an import. These guys are better than KISS. And at that point, I had flipped the album over, looked at it, and thought, a new album. And then he said the words, better than KISS. And I went, they suck. And I handed it back to him. And I did like it, though. I was like, fuck, that's a good album. You're going to ruin KISS, But when Van Halen came out, it was like, they took over everything.
But financed by KISS. By KISS.
I did have that in my back pocket because everybody go like, man, KISS sucks.
I know Gene doesn't think that they're that bad.
And I'm like, there would be no Van Halen if it weren't for Gene Simmons. So I had that, and I had it on 8-track.
Right. I did too.
And
Van Halen 1. Everywhere
we went, that damn album was playing. And at some point, I had to I remember I was at a party, and I'm like, this album is just so damn good. I can't hate it anymore.
Right.
And that's when I realized you could have all the colors of the rainbows, all the numbers, and all of everything, and still enjoy everything.
Right.
But at first, I took that was like a serious threat to something I love. And then the Kings of Cool also lost it when they did KISS Meets the Phantom of the Park, but that's another show.
Yeah.
But Van Halen's album is defining, not so much in that every song is a career-defining song, but the archetype for what they would be to everybody is on that album.
Oh, they were a game changer too. I mean, that was the whole thing. And I was sitting out there a while ago when Ronnie borrowed a speaker for his gig last night for me for my PA because he had one to go out. And I was going through my list of what he goes. First thing he goes, "You fucking put Van Halen in there? What the hell's wrong with you?" I'm going, dude, I got too many already. And I said, I understand what you're saying, but
And yesterday was the anniversary of Eruption being recorded.
Right? Yep.
So
I saw that.
Birthday Eruption, but it changed rock and roll. That album changed rock and roll.
We're scoring that record. We're scoring that one.
Boom, up from there. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Alan. Number 3, brother.
Metallica, Kill 'Em All. Now the funny thing about this album is, the first time I heard it, I was 15, 16 years old or something. I hated it. The only reason I got it on cassette because it had "Am I Evil" on it, and I knew that song. But that was the only song on the tape that I liked, and so I gave the tape away. And then years later, I was stationed in Germany, and a friend of mine turned me back on to Metallica. So I picked up Master of Puppets, and then I went back and got Ride the Lightning, and then I went back and got Kill 'Em All, And from beginning to end, I just love this whole album.
It's kind of
Yeah.
I'm not a big Metallica
But
fan.
I also don't think that this is their career-defining album.
No.
I just think it's a good album.
There you go.
It is a great one. It is a great one.
And, I got a no-go on that one. So go ahead.
Feels like.
And in many ways was as much a game changer as Van Halen's first album was.
Because it introduced the masses to thrash.
Oh, it's just speed metal, thrash, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Exactly. And
that was my thing about that. That was what I didn't care for. I didn't care for them. I didn't care for Anthrax. I didn't care for any of that stuff. That was, to me, was not melodic and what I was into. So that's not going to get a thumbs up for me, boys. It's going to get a downer.
All right, I'm kind of a.
That's okay.
But yeah,
but I don't. But I like Metallica. It's just I don't. That album isn't really my.
It's all about our opinions, brothers.
It is. It's right.
Exactly.
Opinion. Yeah.
Whether I like it or not, thumbs up, respect.
There you go.
So
good deal. Speaking of opinions, Bill, what is your opinion on the?
Well, I'm gonna speed this bad boy up because the very first list listed on there is Van Halen. So I'm going to speed this up because we've talked about it already.
Just say ditto.
Just say ditto, and I don't know how you can't. I don't know how that didn't make it on the list. That's a rock solid, badass album right there. So
I agree.
There you go. Boom. Back to you, Ken.
How about Dennis?
Oh, sorry. Back to you, Dennis.
Dennis gets.
So I'm going to go with. I'm kind of going through the years here. Foreigner's first album. Foreigner's first album is one of those ones that I can listen to and I did it today, listen to it from start to finish, and it had some fairly big hits on it, but even the songs that weren't radio aired are really good songs. Woman to Woman, great song, Star Rider, but you had Feels Like the First Time, you had, album's great, Long Way From Home, great album. And I mean, and Foreigner continued on. That was another part of my thing. This album was not only was it good, then they came out with Double Vision. Holy shit. You're there. You go again.
It really set the stage.
It did, and they were kind of riding that 70s corporate big, what you want to call it, anthem rock or corporate rock or arena rock, whatever you want to call it.
But hold on a second, because before Rolling Stone made that a thing, and they did make that a thing.
Right.
It was just music. It was just something that we, the people that bought music and listened to the radio, it was Rolling Stone that made that happen. And I'll tell you, I remember the article so well because it was talking about how, like, the faceless look of corporate rock. I can't tell who's in what band anymore. Tommy Shaw might as well be playing for Kansas. It's like a baseball team, and they could all have cards like, here's my Tommy Shaw card, and here's my, Lou Gramm card.
So is that where KISS got the idea?
Yeah, KISS said. Gene goes, you know what? I think we can make some money on this.
No, they already had the cards. Back then, but,
that's right. They did.
Which, by the way, was one of the greatest moves that they could have ever done, because so many kids that never heard them on the radio, never saw them on TV, maybe saw them at the news depot or wherever you bought the comics at, or the baseball cards. I remember John Humphrey, the drummer from Seether, he was on the show, and he said that's what made him a fan was those baseball cards. There's Jaws cards, there's $6 Million Man cards,
Evil cards. I had them all. I had everything.
And it's like, what is that? And here we are. The rest is Seether history. I mean, history. Hi, John.
All right. So anyway, Foreigner, I'm going to give it a big thumbs up.
I'll give it a thumbs up.
I mean,
great album.
Yep. All right. Ken, now it's your turn.
Number 4.
Gosh, this is tough. There's so many I want to choose from. I can only do 5, right? Can I do honorable mention at the end of the show?
We'll do honorable mentions at the end.
The Pretenders, first album.
Oh, never
fantastic. And it's got so much good stuff on it, and it was weird because Nick Lowe produced their first single, and he thought there's nothing really in this band that's going to go anywhere.
Right.
which is hard to believe, but it was one of those albums that has so much great stuff on it. It rode the coattails of the punk movement and new wave, and Chrissie Hynde, my girl from Cleveland area, she went back to Ohio. And I think it is a career-defining album as well. I think it is their best album, their best musical statement. I mean, it's got so much great stuff on there, like even Space Invaders, great. Stop Your Sobbing. So many great songs. Brass in Pocket, what a great single,
Right.
And it was great. To me, this is one of those ones that's right up there, whether you're looking at power pop or rock and roll, punk, whatever. This is a great album. Great look, great band.
Yeah,
I actually carried that album around yesterday for a little while.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I put it, and it wasn't in great shape, so I ended up putting it back, but because I just didn't think it was in good enough shape to.
I've been carrying it around in my heart forever.
I was carrying it around in my brass pocket. There you go.
All right, awesome, Alan.
So what are we giving that one? We giving that one
I give it a big thumbs. Big thumbs.
That's an up.
Yeah.
An up for everybody.
Ching, 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 ching.
Ting! You're all allowed to live.
Yay.
Thanks, Podfather.
My number 4 pick is Alice in Chains, Facelift.
Oh,
because I don't give a flying shit what anybody says. Alice in Chains' Facelift is not a grunge album. That is a rock and roll album. And it's a fantastic rock and roll album.
Yes, my son, but I will help you out. Once you realize that grunge is rock and roll, it all makes sense.
Very
well, and that's the thing about grunge is, I never really separated out the difference to an extent between Pearl Jam and Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains and, Soundgarden. All of those, that was just the
basically they said, where are you from? Seattle? Oh, you're a grunge band.
You're grunge,
okay.
Yeah.
Put you over here.
Oh, you like flannel?
Weird thing. Yeah. That was the weird thing about that grunge thing is everything from Brian Setzer's jazz and swing music was put into that category. Hootie and the Blowfish, which has much more to do in common, as far as I'm concerned, with John Denver. Nothing against John Denver, but if you put Alice in Chains and Hootie and the Blowfish together, it makes zero sense, right? But everything from Alanis Morissette to the Red Hot Chili Peppers to the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, everything was played on those stations. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In a way, it was kind of good, though.
Well, but what it is, though, you get into the names and which category you're in. Basically, anything that wasn't glam, hair pop at that time or whatever was considered grunge. You know what I'm saying? It's just if you didn't wear makeup and look like a chick, okay, you're grunge then. That's what they did. I mean, they put
if you didn't wear a costume, if you didn't wear a costume for on stage. I mean, most
if you didn't look like Maud on stage.
Right.
Right.
Well,
if you wore a flannel shirt and jeans or t-shirt and jeans, it wasn't.
But the best thing about the flannel shirt and jeans is it was a costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
it's
it was
a different costume.
Yeah, it was just a different costume.
If you don't look like a lumberjack, you can't be in my band.
Go be in Jackal.
See, this is the sad thing about it, is that everything we do is for a visual purpose. But keep that in mind, folks. All 4 of us thought we looked good enough to be on YouTube today.
Hey, I always look good. What are you talking about? Bill looks white. He's just really white.
He just went ding.
For those who are only listening to the podcast, Bill just gave Dennis some sign language.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're number 1.
So now it's your turn, Bill.
And Alan's starting his Dan Haggerty fan club. So
I got called Dan Haggerty yesterday.
You're too short to be Dan Haggerty.
Yeah, no shit.
You need one of the raccoon hats, and it all
exactly. Right.
I don't have a jacket made out of leather fringe either.
You don't have a really bad cocaine habit either. All right.
The night's
Not
young.
that we know of anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Go ahead.
All right. So I'm gonna go with we got 2 left, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with I'm going to go with my favorite band in the world.
All right.
I'm going to go with KISS and their debut album. It wasn't, that's not the first album I heard. The first album I heard was Destroyer, and I had to go back and find them. But even now, when I go back and listen to that first KISS record, it's, I mean, honestly, it's
half your concert you go to right now.
It's 85% of the show you go to. Deuce.
Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, Let Me Know, Kissin' Time, Deuce, Love Theme from Kiss, 100,000 Years, and Black Diamond.
Yeah.
And just, it's a great record. It really is a great record.
The only reason it didn't make my list, and I'm glad you picked it, because you let me have peace in my heart. I will vote King thumbs up, is the production on it.
Yeah, it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's just the songs do not have the same energy that they do on Alive.
Right.
Because I think one of the best sounding Kiss produced albums of all time is Dressed to Kill.
Oh, it's great.
That album sounds great to me. That's if Hotter Than Hell could sound like that, right? If like
you think though, if Eddie Kramer would have did the original Kiss album, it'd have been a different story.
No,
you don't think?
No, because
producing it because it's sound. I don't think the sound quality is as good. And
all right,
Hotter Than Hell is even worse.
Can I swear on the show?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Nobody's ever said that. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
There's losing your virginity, and then there's learning how to fuck. Right? When they did Alive,
I like that.
They learned something.
Exactly.
They learned what they needed to do. Right. And that became the standard from then on. Right. Even though the next album they went and did Destroyer,
right.
Bob Ezrin understood that we have to take the Alive experience and make it even larger. Yeah. Right. So, Kiss's album is great. The first Kiss album is fantastic. And I think there's a lot of people that are bummed out the way Black Diamond ends on the album.
I hate that. That was my only downfall on that album.
Yeah.
Especially when you got an 8-track, because you got to wait till that son of a bitch ends.
Yeah.
You can't skip through it.
But having said that, everything that's on the first Kiss album is better, I feel, on Alive.
Yeah,
which is
not.
I still love the first Kiss album 100%.
Right.
Plus, I'd have to turn in my PodKISSt card, and I'm not going to do that.
Well, I want to go on record here for the last week or however long it's been since we've been planning on getting you on the show. Dennis has said that he knows that all of us are going to have this one of the same albums, and I was sure this one was the one he was talking about.
Actually, it was Guns N' Roses.
Because I kept telling him, no, Dennis, you're wrong. I'm not going to have that album. But when we do these shows, we don't talk in advance about what our picks are.
We text back and forth to say,
Pixar,
"Man, I got my 5," and but we don't say what we got. So anyway,
so do me a favor by picking.
All right, so I'm thumbs up on that one.
Instead of putting a thumbs up, here's what I'm going to do.
Thumbs up, tongues out.
Instead of doing a thumbs up, I'm just going to go with what I got written down here, KISS. It was one of those ones that I wasn't going to pick just for the fact that I knew somebody else would pick. And after listening to it again today, I was like, God damn it. There's no way I can't throw this in. I mean, and it hits all the criteria of all my rules that I made up for myself.
Put yourself in a box. Man in a box.
I can get through it without.
That's on Facelift.
Yeah, I couldn't get through. I can go through it without skipping. It wasn't just a one-off thing, and it is a game changer. So yeah, I had to pick it. So yeah,
cool.
All right,
good idea. Yep. Getting back to you, man. Number 5,
right,
last pick, dude.
Last one of the 5 we got.
This is so tough. I'm glad you're going to give me the cheat of honorable mentions.
All right.
There were 2 albums when Cheap Trick's first album came out that I played continually over and over again. And in our kitchen, I had the Cheap Trick album with side 1 and side A, and another platter that would play with it. Mm. And I would flip both of them over, and then it would drop, play and drop, play and drop, right?
Right.
Every day of my senior year of high school, that's what I listened to every morning. The other album, besides Cheap Trick's 1977 debut, was the Monkees album.
Really?
A great album. So fantastic. Last Train to Clarksville, Saturday's Child, Tomorrow's Gonna Be Another Day, Papa Jean's Blues, Take a Giant Step, Gonna Buy Me a Dog, Sweet Young Thing. There's one album on there, one song on there that makes me go, yeah, they could have put something else here. I'll Be True to You. But it fits within what they were doing.
Right.
And whether the Monkees played on it or not, which some of them did, it's their vocals.
Right.
And it's
the Wrecking Crew that did most of it, but yeah, it is good.
Yeah. And Mike produced his own stuff. Right. Michael Nesmith, and he wrote his stuff, and it's just a great album all the way around. And whether you like the Monkees or not, they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, even though I don't really care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I do care that the people out in the real world that buy albums, that make up the people who will go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the people that are the public, the fact that they've sold as many millions of albums as they have and have proven themselves to be a concert draw throughout the years.
Right. I didn't realize that they weren't in the Hall of Fame. Shame on them. I thought they were already in there. So
well, it's like, how many hits do you have to have, right, before before you're allowed to be in there? If we really took,
we've had this conversation.
That's a whole other show.
Bill will turn from white to red here really fast.
Faster than an NHRA dragster.
But I don't know if you guys have ever heard the Monkees debut album, but I
had it, and I don't know if my aunt had it and gave it to me when I was a kid, and I listened to that. I like the Monkees. I always have.
Yeah, that was one that I got also from my aunt when I was a kid. I got the Beatles, KISS, and the Monkees from my Aunt Cindy.
You're in good. Aunt Cindy,
good hands there, buddy.
You give her a big kiss from me.
When I had, that, and the Partridge Family and everything else. And, the thing is, I don't care if they weren't the actual fucking band. There were people, like you said, there were people that they did sing on it. They did that. I don't care who fucking played on it. They're good tunes. And they're, just get over it. I'm going to give them a big thumbs up.
Thumbs up from
Tater.
I
think that was a good thing for the album, Dennis. I'm not sure. They dropped the F-bomb like 12 times in 3 seconds.
Oh yeah.
I know Last Train to Clarksville. I know a couple other songs on there. I don't know that I've ever heard the whole thing, but I do like the Monkees, and I've seen them a couple of different times. I've seen Mickey Dolenz, and I've seen Davy Jones. I've seen Davy Jones too.
Somebody's going to buy themselves a dog. That's the last song on the album, and you guys have one. I hear it. So.
I have 4. I had 3, but I just recently inherited a 4th dog. So,
yep.
He inherited a dog.
All right, but I would give it a thumbs up because the songs that I know from there I really like. So,
because it's the freaking Monkees.
The Monkees. Good.
You have to wonder what kind of a black hole in someone's heart that can't appreciate Last Train to Clarksville. That's all I'm going to say.
Just leave it at that. Drop the mic,
No, don't drop the mic. Those things are expensive.
Unless you got an SM58, then you can just drop it all day long.
Yeah, you can use those for hammers.
All right.
Alan, my number 5 song is Core by Stone Temple Pilots. Again, this is one of those.
Don't you mean album?
That got classified as grunge, and I don't really think it's grunge. It's a rock and roll.
I don't think STP was grunge, really.
A lot of,
maybe
the second album.
They were classified.
The Umbrella.
They got
anything that came out.
Anything that came out in the early mid '90s was called grunge, whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
That's a great album.
It is a great album.
But I think and I hate to say this, but I think one of the reasons that this was such a good album is because it was, most of the lyrics all of the lyrics were written by a guy who was always up, high on cocaine or heroin or smack or whatever his drug of choice was.
Right.
I was lucky enough a lot of the Stone Temple Pilots albums that he wrote while sober were nowhere near as good. Whenever he'd go back on the whatever his drug was, the albums were always seemed to be better.
Just imagine the record company. Guess what? This one's going to be good. Scott's back on the stuff. Yay!
I was looking
up
to see
that for sure.
I seen them in
That's
Evansville
the problem with
tour,
them.
and he was on his game. He probably was fucked up, but he was on his game at that time. It actually was Cheap Trick and Stone Temple Pilots. It was a great show. I mean, he was up there. He had the bullhorn, I am, it's just like, holy shit, dude. I mean, and I've seen some videos of him when he's not on his game, and they're probably the worst thing you'll ever see.
Terrible.
So, oh, yeah, terrible.
So a question for you, Ken.
Yes.
Who has Cheap Trick not opened for? Can you name the band?
The Monkees.
They have not opened up for Fifth Degree Burn.
That's true. My band. They haven't.
Okay, I mean like a band with a career.
Miley Cyrus, Def Punk. But
Have
that
they
could
opened
change
for
at
Def
any
Leppard?
Taylor Swift.
that could change at any moment. So
Yeah.
It's I don't want to get into like the how is Cheap
it's not a
rated
big
or whatever.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, like they've made a career out of like KISS and them, for example, 3 albums that kind of did not go as far as they wanted to, and then that Alive album, number 4, hit, boom. It's the same story, right?
Right.
And they also look back at some of their producers, but with KISS, I can say, well, yeah, Hotter Than Hell sonically doesn't sound good. I can't say that about the first 3 Cheap Trick albums,
Right.
But they've opened up for a lot of people, and
Right.
the way I look at it, it's kind of a smart thing for them to do. Whereas a lot of bands might say, we're too big to open up for someone, right?
Right.
But man, that puts you in front of the next generation.
Right.
Every 10 years you're in front of a new crowd that you don't get if you refuse to take that shot.
Yeah. I actually have seen them headline though.
I have too.
Which is
I think their biggest time of headlining was when the Flame come out.
The Flame was out.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the tour.
That was
Joan Jett. And
it was House of Lords, Joan Jett,
Lords,
and Cheap Trick. I was at Robert Stadium for that show.
I've seen that.
Yep,
So.
I was there too. All right, so we're going to give that one. So that was
thumbs up.
That was Stone Temple Pilots, right?
Yeah.
Great album.
Yeah.
Great album.
All right, so my last one, I'm going to go with something relatively new.
Okay.
So there's a band from Europe from England that we've been kind of pushing
I almost went there.
I personally really liked it. It's a band called Inglorious, and we've had their bass player on the show, and Colin, and we had a great time with him. And that album is an album that we've been looking for a long time out of a new band.
Right.
It's a breath of fresh air.
It's a rock album, and it's phenomenal from front to back. And as soon as I can whip up enough cash to buy an album from across the pond, I think I will. But it's a really great record, and it's one of those that has a they did. I don't know if you know this, Ken, or not, but they really used multimedia to launch their career. I mean, that was a big, huge deal for them. Their first show that they did was in a smaller theater, 300 400 seats, and it sold out. And they didn't even have a record out, and it was all using multimedia to get the word
hype
out.
And make them the new big band and all that.
It's a really good record. So that's mine. I love that. I think it's a great record and a great debut. And the sophomore album's great too. So
yeah.
And the name of the band is
Inglorious.
Inglorious. Okay.
Yeah, and the first album is called Inglorious, and the second one is Inglorious too.
So I will give them a side thumb because I haven't heard them, but I'm sure they're great.
Check it out.
Have you heard Greta Van Fleet?
Yes. Yeah. I like those guys too, and for their EP, it's really good, and I'm really curious to see what they'll do. They'll continue on, but no, it sounds fresh. I mean, it's fresh Led Zeppelin, but it's fresh. It's not a rehash. It sounds good. No, I like those guys.
It'll be interesting to see where they develop.
I'm kind of curious about that too. So
the lead singer's voice for me is a little, I don't know, a little grating.
Is he pitchy, dog?
He's a little
pitchy.
Kind of.
I don't know. I don't know. There's something about it. I don't know if there's something about it that I've listened to it. I'm kind of like,
yeah.
But The music's
See,
great.
you guys have had like 3 years or however long the show's been on to make goofy
Next
faces.
month will be 2 years.
2 years. So, well, I assumed you made faces before you got cameras.
Yeah.
So this is all new to me. I can be
There you
goofy.
go.
You can make all the faces you want.
Yeah.
We don't care.
As you can tell,
All right.
We have
I
Dennis's
make
face on
face.
here. So.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
weird.
goofy all the time.
It's weird. I have thousands of voices I can do. So many imitations. Only one face. It's sad.
Yeah. Yep. We all have faces for radio, but so far nobody wants us on the radio.
All right. So my last one is, of course, I cannot get through a whole episode here without mentioning.
Let me get.
My favorite. What?
Let me guess.
Let me guess. Go ahead.
Look at his shirt.
Yes.
Look at his shirt.
There you go. Dave Grohl. And then, the thing is do we really want to call it the Foo Fighters' first album? Because really it's a Dave Grohl album. And he played everything on there except for one. I was reading about today. There was only one song that there was a guitar spot by a name of a guy's name's Greg Dooley. But Dave played everything else on here. And you know what? It's their second best selling album. I kind of, because of all the albums they've done, I'm surprised it's number 2. Yeah. Hold on, my wife's she's calling. So, but anyway, that's my final one. So.
I give it a thumbs up.
Cool.
What's on that album? I don't remember what's on that album. Help me out.
Big Me.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I gotta take a call.
Monkey Wrench.
No, that's off Color and Shape. Hold on a second.
Oh.
Well, while you're taking that call, we'll let Ken talk about his honorable mentions. And now that you can't hear us, we're going to make fun of you.
Yeah, which is what we usually do because it's fun.
Hi.
Because
hi.
What are you
have
doing?
A sore.
Hey.
Penicillin.
That's what we do every time on the phone. It's like,
my taint. It's really excoriated, honey. Seriously. I'm probably going to have to seek medical help. Courtney Cronin Dole, great joke.
Oh my gosh. Well, they were talking about that right as we were starting to interview someone. I believe it was a Scott Van Zandt interview. But they started talking about Gene's taint and somewhere between heaven and hell. And everybody that we were recording, we just all went.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I'm glad to have her on Pop for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. She's great.
All right. So real quick before we're done, honorable mentions. You want to say a couple real quick?
Gosh, there's so many. The Ramones.
I'm getting ready to
Meatloaf.
Oh yeah.
Meatloaf. Come on. How can you? Black Sabbath.
Right.
Great album. Kate Bush. Right. Cyndi Lauper. Come on.
Yeah.
King's X.
Yeah. I had Fastway. That was my other one. And I had Fastway was on for a long time, and I had to take it off. That's an Eddie Kramer album, also.
Produced. And then there's some band named Led Zeppelin.
Dude, that was the other one.
I was
like,
yeah.
So I was like, you're not gonna put Led Zeppelin on there? I was like, dude, I can't pick only 5. That's it.
Here's the sad thing.
What's that?
I can't say the Beatles' first album.
No, I can't either. No, I can't either. I don't care.
It makes me sad. It's a great album, but
can we consider their first album after they quit the Mop Top to be a debut album?
Because as soon as they started smoking weed,
when they started doing LSD.
I don't know, but see, here's the thing: is it throws things, it messes things up. Please Please Me was their original album, which kind of but then they did their first album proper was with the Beatles, or if you're from America, Meet the Beatles.
Right.
And that is, to me, if that would have been their actual first album, bang. It would have been it would have been part of the conversation.
It's all kind of semantics. I mean, it's kind of unfortunately. But there again,
that's the way it is.
Oh, I could have had a list of 100. I could have had a list of 100. Right. I had to knock it down to 5. Oh. I got it down to like 7. I got it down to 5, but that's the way it is. But
so another show would be career-defining album and breaking the sophomore slump.
There you go. That was
there. You go. Write that down, Bill.
I wrote it down. I wrote sophomore slump on it.
Yeah. Right. All right.
But seriously, career-defining albums that.
Oh yeah, that would be another one. Great.
Sometimes it doesn't happen till 3 or 4 times in or out of the gate. So
exactly.
But by the way, if anyone disagrees with me, they are wrong, and it's okay.
Hey, Hey,
it's okay to be wrong.
This show is all about opinions. It's all about opinions. So you know what? Everybody's got an opinion.
And you know what they say? Every opinions are like elbows. Everybody has one. So.
Right.
Exactly. I got
Ken,
what I've
I
heard.
got
But
before we roll up out of here, Ken.
Yes.
Pimp all your podcasts. Give us web addresses and all of that good stuff.
Okay. PodKISS is the longest running KISS podcast of all time until we fall down and stop and someone continues carrying the torch. If you go to www.podkiss.com, you will find it. We do a cheap trick show.
Okay.
Cheap
now, spell PodKISSt.
Oh, PodKISSt.
There you go.
PodKISS.
Continue.
It was kind of, this was back when nobody knew what a podcast was, but we thought we'd be clever and be PodKISSt instead of cast.
There you go. Awesome.
Thank you, Gary Schaller. He's the one that came up with that, I believe. But
shout out to Gary Schaller for his fantastic guitar
great
work.
Guy.
That was
great guy.
Wow.
Love
great
him.
guy, yeah.
Wow.
One of the greatest comedic minds I've ever met. He's something. Seriously. We do a cheap trick show called Cheap Talk about trick chat. That's the long version, but it's really cheap talk. If you do a search for it, you might find a cell phone plan. I don't know. But if you're seriously wanting to find a show about cheap trick, you'll find us. Just do a search. I have a friendly face. Come on. Come on. We do a show called Zilch, and it is all about the Monkees. And when I say it's all about the Monkees, that's everything, everyone, every person, every behind-the-scenes person, every person that was on the set. We had Rosemarie on. We've had Mickey Dolenz on. We've had Peter Tork. And who knows, we might get some guy who formerly wore a wool hat at some point. But the show's been on for a little over 3 years. And who knew there'd be so much to talk about the Monkees? But there is. And there's all the various incarnations, whether it's the TV show or the movie Head, and just so much has been written about them, and there's a lot of people love the Monkees. I was not aware for the hunger that was out there. We have this thing called the KISS fan site, my wife and I run, and it's not that big of a board now because Facebook came and trampled all over message boards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, but we used to do this thing that would be on April Fool's. Every once in a while, I'd change the entire board over to the Monkees. So KISS fans would come and go to the Gene Simmons room, and it's the Peter Tork room all of a sudden. And the main page would have a banner of the Monkees, and people would be like, surprisingly, a lot of them were like, I wouldn't mind this, actually. I kind of dig the Monkees. And I kept threatening on the PodKISS to do a special about the Monkees, and so many people said, you've got to do this. We love the Monkees. And who would have thought that all these KISS loving, hard rocking fans would love the Monkees? But when you think about it, it's not all that unusual. Think about the three bands I've just mentioned: KISS, Cheap Trick, and the Monkees, and the Beatles. Collect all four, right? There's they all have strong personalities. They could all be on baseball cards, lunchbox, what have you. They've all done stuff in movies or, things like that. You see their influences in pop culture and everything.
Right.
But you could have an action figure of each member, of the four original members of each of those bands. And there's something about the ownership of fans that there's some sort of thing that's there that binds all four of those things together. There's what is it, a Venn diagram where you'd have Cheap Trick and the Beatles and Monkees and KISS, and there's that one section. That's where we're at. Bye. Anyway, but so there's that. But then there's our new baby, which is called Pop, a pop culture podcast, which is really hard to find on iTunes because there's 9,000 pop culture podcasts. Really? So if you are interested in hearing about everything from TV and movies and books and anything that's out there, all of pop culture, we talk about it. We talk about a lot of music too. If you're interested, the best way to find us on iTunes is to do a search for Pop Staff.
Okay.
Because that's us, the providers. It'll take you right to it. But if you're curious about a pop culture podcast, I'm sure check the links, right, guys? We'll put in the links, right?
Yep.
So do all that. And this has been interesting. Nobody's ever seen me on like this before, really. So I've come out on your show.
There you go.
I predict that this will be the biggest rated episode.
I hope so.
Oh, it probably will.
Ages of Rock, because I'm sending all my maniacs.
There you
all
go.
The maniacs, the mills of maniacs. Oh yeah,
the
brother.
the Podfather says you need to watch this.
Yeah, and of course, this coming fall, there's a new show, Podfather Knows Best. It's the wacky adventures of me, my wife, and our Chihuahua and 3 stepkids. Podfather.
Awesome.
All right, well, Ken, we sure appreciate you being on, dude. It's been a hoot, and like I said, hopefully we'll do it again soon. Hopefully there'll be a part 2 of this podcast expo next year. We'll get to hang out again, maybe play some more cool tunes.
I don't know. We might do a Podfather meet and greet then, so I will give you guys a discount.
There you go. What will you sign and won't you sign?
Gene Simmons is my hero. So
there you go. Hey, that's how you know.
I will sign boobs, so all 3 of you are included, right on your heads. No, when I got back from the Rock and Pod Expo, my wife was like, "How is your head going to fit through the door?" Because I experienced so much love there.
It was,
and
time.
It was almost like heaven on earth. Seriously, it was amazing, and people coming up saying, "I do my show because you ran your mouth a long time ago," and so many great people, like-hearted individuals. Everybody there had lion hearts. Do you know what I'm talking about? Be they men, women, whatever. We were all lion hearts, and by that I mean I know that if I need anything, I can call one of you 3 guys.
Yeah,
like tech support from Best Buy.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the amazing. I totally agree, because the amazing thing was, nobody really knew each other, right? And all of a sudden, you're in a room full of people that you could probably hang out with like that all the time. No problem. I mean, it was. Yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed it.
My whole thing was, we showed up and we're fairly new in this whole thing called, world of podcasting.
I kind of like Gene.
There you go.
Yeah.
Didn't see your tongue wagging around, so we missed that part.
No, he did.
But
that
no,
earlier
I kind of felt
episode.
like we were, here we're kind of new into the thing, so I kind of was kind of sitting back, just kind of staying in the shadows. But then, everybody was just so nice and just accepting, and there wasn't no egos, there wasn't anything going on. It was just really cool. I mean, I was like, holy shit, this is really nice.
I would say that there were a lot of ego there because I was there, but it was all cool and it was all about love. And
it was.
I'm telling you right now, if you missed the 2017 Rock and Pod Expo, where Rock and Pod came together, brother, do not miss next year's, because it's going to be bigger. I don't know if it could ever be better, because I had a great time.
Yeah.
I had a great time.
Well, it's like the first time, right? Can the second time be better than the first time?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's going to be
you're not going to be a virgin, or you're going to learn to fuck, right? That's
well, you've got that going for you if you're lucky.
All right, with that note, Alan, take us out of here, brother.
All right, visit us on agesofrock.com. Check us out on Stitcher Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and until next week, peace out, folks. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.